I have the privilege to be a pro runner, and I'm witnessing all of these like public lands protections being ripped out of the US, from Bears Ears to places in Colorado to northern Alaska. And so I was like, I need to talk about this. Like, this is my job. Like, running on public lands is my job. Like, how can any runner ignore that there's like these crazy assaults happening all over the world?
Hi everyone. Today I get to speak to Clare Gallagher. But before we get into the conversation, I'd like to take a moment to thank the traditional custodians upon the lands which this podcast has created, and I'd like to pay my respects to the elders, past, present, and emerging. Clare Gallagher is an inspirational person doing a lot of work to help save our home planet. She's not just an incredible athlete, achieving some of the best results in the sport of ultra trail running, but she also puts herself out there tirelessly to make sure that we have a brighter future and that we have an environment that we can continue to enjoy. We talk about what it's like to be a global sports activist and how we can have a positive impact on the health of the environment from a community level and to a much higher overarching level, such as the world of politics and how we can even use our banks in a different way. There's many things covered in this conversation, and I hope you enjoy it, and I hope it also helps you have a conversation with someone that you know or someone that you don't know about this really important topic of climate change and protecting the environment that we live in. I'd also like to give a big shout out to the Up for Air series and Run for Wild Places. And if you do hashtag, please consider using hashtag Run Responsibly. So thanks a lot for listening in, and I hope you enjoy this conversation with Clare Gallagher. My name's Maël Backhausen, and this is Stokely, a creative endeavour to ensure we continue to connect, listen, learn, and evolve through the art of conversation.
How are you?
Good, how are you?
Fantastic.
Good.
What are you up to?
It's snowing, like there's like a foot outside.
Radical. What does that mean? How much is that in centimeters?
Oh, it's like 20 centimeters.
Sweet.
Yeah.
Hey, so whereabouts are you?
I'm in Boulder.
Sweet. And you just came back from outdoor retailer show?
Yeah. Which, have you ever been to it before?
I've only heard of its epicness, really.
Okay, yeah. It's like a lot of time inside, but it's just in Denver. So I take the bus. It's like an hour bus. It's really easy, but it's just like a full day thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What was the standout thing this year that was happening there?
There was a climate rally, which was like standout for me on Friday, that this ski mountaineer, Caroline Gleick, I don't know if you know of her. She's a Patagonia ambassador. And then Katie Bouet, they're both at Salt Lake. They organized, and that was cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, otherwise, like, it's the winter show, so there's not like much runners present.
I've spoken to a lot of people about the show. I think, is it ISPO? I think
it's the same.
Yeah. So they do that one, and I remember speaking to some people about ISPO 2019, the summer one. And they said that there was this just overarching theme of sustainability and like...
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. I've never heard that before. I can't imagine, like, do you think from 2018 to 2019, everyone's just going, holy crap, like, you know, this is the new selling point or something? Like, or do you think companies are like legitimately thinking we've got to do something because otherwise or do they think they're just doing it for more market share?
That's a really good question. In the US, I feel like the writing's on the wall is starting to be, well, it kind of depends, because like a lot of companies I feel like don't know that much about sustainable fabrics too, or they're just like too lazy to put in that R&D to like clean up their supply chains. But there was a minor theme of that. Like now there's this like Climate Action Corp that brands can join, but there's like thousands of booths, right? Of like all these brands you've never heard of. And they're just like trying to stay profitable, and like getting them to join a climate action corps is actually like kind of hard, I think. At least in the US still, where like capitalism is like everything.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the same in Australia though, in many ways. Like in Europe, I feel like it's a little bit more, and this is all like anecdotal. Yeah. A little bit more.
Yeah. I mean, I think to a large extent we do, like Australia or this part of the world definitely follows after the trends of America. So yeah I think it's, yeah, I mean, like you say, capitalism is a pretty evident thing right now. And because can you can you give us a rundown on your situation these days, and how, like, what you do day to day, and like where you place yourself within the world? Like what's the role of Clare in this world right now?
Sure. Let's see here. I work for Patagonia as an ambassador, so a trail runner, and then but also a global sports activist. So what that means is I when I'm not running, I'm doing some type of activism. When I'm home in Boulder, I really like being home more than anything, which is funny because I mean, you travel more than I do, I feel like, even, but I've started to be like, oh, it's been such a good month because I haven't been on a plane, which is not how I was 10 years ago. I was like always itching to travel. Anyways, yeah, so I train, and pretty light. Like I don't run that much. I max out at like 75 miles a week. Or like, honestly, like an average week is around like 100K of running in 6 days. And then, so in Colorado, I'm getting involved with a bunch of different grassroots movements like Colorado Rising, 350 Colorado, Conservation Colorado. And these are all orgs that are trying to essentially tighten up the oil and gas industry regulations, which are really archaic, because Colorado is very much of like the Western boom bust, like free for all industry era. And it's really bad. Like we have horrible air pollution in the Denver metro area. There's like wells all over North Denver, like fracking wells. Just last night, like one exploded just like next to a neighborhood. So yeah, I've like embedded a little bit more in my local scene, which is really cool. And then when I'm traveling, I'm usually doing more like high level activism work, hopefully inspiring people to get involved in their local movements or national movements like Protect Our Winners or canvassing for a presidential candidate. That's big in 2020.
Like no other time before in history, it seems that the world is like actually collectively talking about climate change. We need to do something. Like you're talking about small organizations popping up all over the place to kind of try and start movements here, there, and everywhere. I think like it's an incredible time to be in this space. And, you know, like, how do you see it not being a fad, but being something that's like, okay, no, this isn't just a moment in time that we need to talk about this and show a bit of interest. This is something we need to, like, you know, we need to go from talking about it being in a headline, it being a thing of the time, and then just fucking action on all of it.
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, you tell me, what has it been like being from Australia and like with the largest forest fires ever in like our lifetime? Do you feel like the apocalyptic bushfires have changed anything in Australia?
I mean, thanks for putting the question back on me, but I think, like, all honesty, I I honestly am so intrigued as to what's going to happen. I really think that it's an ultimate test of like, there you go. Like, what more do you want to see? How much more destruction do you want to have? Like, before you start to like reflect that back on your own life and what you can do to solve this global problem. Because even though we're only one individual, everything we do collectively adds up over the 7 or 8 billion times, you know, however many people there are. And I think there is a huge amount of power that we all have as individuals, and we just need to start to realize that and start to do something about it.
Yeah, 100%. I think that's a valuable place to inspire people, because like when you look at this, the stats and the science, right, we need our governments to act. Like we need the systems change to make, essentially to stop subsidizing the fossil and fuel industries, that which is what's wrecking our earth, and the banks that are funding the fossil fuel industries. But yeah, if we pick up trash on our runs, like take 3 for the trail, if we adopt a plant-based diet, like decide to not race in Europe, which I'm not doing this year. I would like to think that that has trickle effects, and the cultural movement will push policies. Because when you look at all the major like social movements in history, yeah, it's required like millions and millions of people worldwide to get behind something like the civil rights movement, apartheid. So it matters. You're totally right. It matters.
It's interesting you bring up those really, really significant moments in time, you know, and yeah, they're not related to climate change specifically, but if you look at it on that kind of a social and psychological level, it's amazing how you can draw similarities from it and be like, the reality is that this is as bad as those atrocities that happened back then. Like,
totally. And like, I mean, really, if you look at the intersectionality of climate change, it's a climate justice issue. You know, it's like black and brown communities, poor, are the ones being most affected by climate change. So it completely is a human justice issue. And like apartheid, for example, if I'm not mistaken, like many entities, financial entities around the world divested from like South African institutions that were enabling apartheid, right? And so that happened almost independent of policies. Like that was like the bank, the financial like strangle on that, which I've looked more into. I'm trying to learn more about from the climate change perspective. It's really interesting, super complicated, but like for colleges and universities to divest from fossil fuels, like say the US presidential election doesn't go well, I'm obviously hopeful it will, and I'm going to work hard to do my part. But like going that financial route is one way we can go if like Trump were still to be in office, which is interesting to think about.
Yeah, it's interesting.
There's always something we can do.
Yeah. So what is like, on a level for yourself, on a personal level, what is your go-to for educating yourself? You know, you're trying to like study up on these things and try to get a lot more educated, I assume, so you can speak from a point of like real knowledge and understanding on the issues. Like, what are your resources for your, you know, self-education on all these things?
It's vast. I think it's important to have a variety of sources, whether it's like a book that's really interesting. I try and read like a climate related book every few months at a minimum. But consistently I'm reading, I get like in my email, the New York Times climate newsletter, which sounds basic, but it's really good. And it just basically lists all the climate relevant stories from the week, or I think it's bi-weekly. I follow as many grassroots groups like on Twitter or Instagram to see what's happening. So like in Colorado, I'm following these like pretty niche groups like Colorado Rising or 350 Colorado to see like what is relevant locally. And I didn't used to do that like 2 years ago. I was just following like big, like broad national or global things, like Protector Winners or something, or like 350, which is the global movement. And I found specifying and really honing in on where you care about the most, which I'm guessing for most people is where they live. So my home has really opened my eyes to how much work there is to be done, like in my backyard, and how I can get involved. And so much of it is just learning about the laws, like how do we navigate and strategically change laws so that, you know, human health and environmental health is put above oil and gas industry profits.
There's a new bank in Australia. I don't know how new it is actually, but it from what I understand, it's like the first bank that is saying no to investing into fossil fuels and things like that. Have you got similar companies in America that like big, because like you say, like if this is to change, we need like big change, like we need governments to do something, and usually that comes through people choosing to spend their money differently and choosing to like, you know, really put a foot down and say like we're not willing to help you financially any longer in this situation unless you do something. Like, and is there similar, like, do you know of any big entities like, you know, because banking is something we all use all the time, you know?
Totally,
It's almost like a supermarket. Like if there was a really good supermarket and you went there all the time to shop, like, have you got any like recommendations for those areas of people's lives that they could look into making a change if they wanted to?
100%. In the US, there's one big bank called Bank of the West that has just proven that they disentangled all of their investments from any fossil fuel project. And I've looked into it and talked to some people who like really looked into it. Mostly Protector Winners did. And so like that's where POW is banking now, even though it's a nonprofit. But for individuals, and I want to preface this, I'm not an expert for individuals who like don't need massive loans, you know, I think credit unions are a really good way to go because there's credit unions are usually investing locally in a community. So like personally, I am going to switch. Luckily, I don't bank with Chase because Chase JP Morgan is the worst in the world for funding the destruction of our environment. Bank of America is close after. Anyways, and Wells Fargo is pretty bad. I'm with US Bank right now, and I'm going to switch to a local credit union. It's called Elevations Credit Union, so that I know where like my like few dollars are going. I'm like honestly kind of embarrassed that it hasn't taken me longer to figure this out, but it is like just coming out, as you brought up. Yeah. What is the bank in Australia?
It's called Bank Australia.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice.
And to go off what you just said, I think that's it though, right? Is like, for me, and I'm assuming a lot of other people my age even, like, yeah, we were just brought up and you go to a bank and all the banks are the same and you just pick whichever one has the color that you like more than the other, and you'll get, you know, like you don't have a choice over like what they invest in. They just kind of, and a lot of that, I think, you know, maybe to people who were more interested in that area of life, or, you know, they would look into what a bank does with the money that you give them, the dollars that you give them and they're holding on to. Like it's almost like sometimes unknown what they do with it. But now all of this kind of stuff is coming to the surface, and it's like, whoa, it's not just coming to the surface, but it's also like you have a lot of power and choice over what you do with your money when it's not actually in your hands, I suppose.
Exactly. Yeah. Like this is like, I guess, economics 101, which, I am not that versed in, and I'm glad we're both experiencing it. The millennial problems that really can be millennial solutions, right?
Well, yeah. I mean, don't they say like you can't solve a problem with the same mind that created it? I mean, we obviously have to make a change in the way we're going about things if we want to see a change on like such a large scale.
Mm-hmm.
And again, like, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think, doing things like deciding where you invest your money, and then that goes for banks and that goes for, we've got this thing in Australia like super, which is like your retirement fund and those kind of companies have large funds that they invest in a whole range of different things. And so
totally. I was going to say, I don't know if you saw the news, like BlackRock, which has, it's, I think like an investment company is a general way to put it, but has $7.5 trillion roughly. And they just signed on to a climate, it's like the Climate 100 pledge. And so BlackRock used to have like really, really bad ratings for funding fossil fuel and extraction and development and exploration projects. And then they like crunch the numbers. It's like, oh, this is not good math for our portfolio. Like we're going to lose money. And so that's what ultimately made them sign on to that. And that'll take years, like $7 trillion will take years to disentangle from fossil fuel projects. But I have a friend who works at BlackRock. She's like pretty high up, and she's like, yeah, it's just like, I'm so happy that they finally, the numbers have turned in favor of Earth. So, but then there are also companies like Goldman Sachs, which decided to not continue exploration in the Arctic National Wildlife Refuge in northern Alaska. And they used to be a high funder of that exploration, which hasn't happened yet. It's just like money, when it does happen, hopefully never, but it's like right now that the US government is figuring that out. And Goldman was like, we're out. So hopefully these movements trickle, if enough of us move our like $20 in savings to other banks. I'm hopeful.
I mean, to me, they sound like big wins.
Yeah, it totally is. I think we need to celebrate them and like give these changes the media attention that would hopefully incentivize other banks that care about their optics to do the right thing.
Yeah. And I think, like you said, it's a long-term thing. I mean, it's not going to happen tomorrow, but that is not a good enough excuse in my eyes to not do anything today. Totally. To bring it down to an everyday small scale, like I just put a post up on social media the other day, and I'm like, yeah, cool. I've got these shorts and they're made out of 100% recycled material. And then awesome. someone goes, oh yeah, recycling clothing is the future. And it's like, no, it's not. It's now. Like,
interesting. Yeah.
But like, that's where we're at. Like it's like there is so much available to us now, and although yes, there's the big benefits of making all these small changes are probably not going to be seen immediately, but like it doesn't give us an excuse not to use what we have available to us now and do something with it.
Totally. And to spread the knowledge, like, basically educate our community. If we know, like you and I know, that recycled polyester is and should be the norm, or recycled nylon in all of our running gear, like every single brand should be using it. And it's honestly in their best interest. And for people to think it's the future, that's great, because at least they're not like trolling you. But it's not great because it is now. We should be pushing every single brand to not use virgin petroleum-based fabrics. Like, it's just, it pains me. And I think maybe that's because, like, once you get a little like spiel, like in our case, I'm guessing, like, have you talked to Patagonia materials people?
Not like a little bit, not in a huge amount of detail.
Or anyone, who's using recycled polyester and nylon, it's just like, there is no reason to be using virgin polyester and nylon. Like, it just can be better.
It's, I mean, like, and yeah, I mean, I've done a lot of research online about it, and it's just seems, it's just one of those things that's like using throwaway coffee cups. It's still, it boggles me to think that, like, I honestly, in the world right now, there's probably more keep cups or reusable coffee cups exist in the world right now than disposable coffee cups. Yet we still use disposable coffee cups.
I know.
I mean, yeah, I'm going to get hung up on a lot of small things, but and don't get me wrong, like, I'm not perfect. Like you said, I travel more than I am really deep down comfortable with. And I think, we're all working on certain aspects of our lives to make those changes. Well, I hope we are, but and I think, it's definitely something I'm aware of. And yeah, like I said, I'm not perfect, but again, that's not an excuse. It's not like, I'm not a runner and I haven't run for 10 years, so that's my excuse for not running right now today, or getting off the couch and going for a walk. It's just like, and I feel like that's a big thing, is that whole mindset shift away from, it's not going to affect me, so why should I bother? Or I can't do anything about it right now because I haven't done anything for 10 years. So what's the point?
Right. Yeah, it's funny too, because it's not that hard of a sell. I think the like pros of saying living a more like eco-conscious lifestyle or tuning into your environment more, the pros are like endless, from mental health benefits of being outside more to slowing down your life. Like when I plan out my day or my travel that I bike or take public transport, I'm like way happier, and I'm usually way more productive, and it's like I'm like saving money and yeah, if we come from a place of such privilege where we have the choice to like make these decisions and have a more eco-conscious life, I highly recommend people like try it, whatever that means for them, whether it's like eating fewer animal products or traveling by human-powered means more, public transit more, changing your bank.
I think, it just sets a great example, like it just shows that you are doing something different. And, I think also like change is a scary thing. Like a lot of people probably don't do anything because it just involves change. And that in itself is just a full stop to thinking any further about it. But Claire, you're like, aside from being like such a vocal activist for the environment and to promote change, you're also obviously like such a badass athlete and runner as well. How do you go about educating others within either the environmental side or like the running athlete side? Do you do a lot of talks, or do you get to go and meet with like school kids and stuff like that? Like how do you get an opportunity to voice what you believe to the public?
The majority of the talks I'm doing or giving are to runners. So like our crowd, whether it's like urban runners in Denver. Denver's the biggest city in Colorado, which is only 30 minutes away from where I live. Like I'm going there tomorrow night for an air pollution event at a running store. So that'll be a lot of people like probably in their like 20s, 30s, 40s. And these events like vary, you know, sometimes they're at a Patagonia store. So that audience is like very in tune usually to the messages that I'm trying to share. But a running store often has a more diverse crowd in that people aren't maybe reading, you know, like all of the environmental woes happening. And yeah, I'm not like perfect at it. Don't get me wrong. Meet people where they're at, especially runners, and try and connect someone's love for running with our environmental issues of today. And air pollution is one that I don't care where you live around the world, like air pollution is impacting every single one of us. Maybe like a few people who live in places that don't have any air pollution, but it's inevitable. Like eventually toxins will reach your air. And so if you like to run outside, what are you going to do about it? Like air pollution is linked to such crazy health impacts, from increased asthma rates, obviously, to heart attacks, to stroke. Like the broad level studies attribute, I think, over 9 million deaths a year to bad air quality globally, or like 8.8 million, if I remember correctly. And so if you're running outside, like we're consuming more air, we're like using more air when we're running. Yeah, it's like, it's impacting us. And like, what's the cause of this air pollution? It's the fossil fuel industries. So it depends on the event, to answer your question, how I go about sharing my message or the message, because air pollution is one issue. You know, there's like tons of others, like glacier melt or forest fires or like crappy trail maintenance, trash. But yeah, I would like to work with kids more. I think I have a few events lined up this summer to work with kids. But it's usually talking to people more around my age, and I'm 28.
So I guess, so you were saying before, there's a lot of times there where you do like preach to the converted. You know, you speak to people that are in the same space with the same beliefs as you. What do you ever get community feedback from people that may not be on the same level as you? Like, do you ever, are those people vocal, and how do you go about managing that discussion?
Yeah, I've on social media, I'd say probably like once every week or so, someone is like a blatant climate denier and will DM me, and if I happen to see it, yeah, it's like, it's kind of hilarious, but it's also sad and really disturbing, where people are just like, you know, like Trump's making the air better. Like Trump is, you know, reducing like climate change. And then they'll be like, climate change isn't even real. And so these people are coming from, unfortunately, a place of like extreme lack of knowledge of like scientific facts. And I'm not a climate scientist, but when I share like that, an IPCC report, which I did recently to someone, because they're like, what facts do you have to prove that humans are causing climate change? It's like, here's a study with hundreds of thousands of peer-reviewed scientific studies that prove humans are causing climate change, and this is what climate change is around the world. Those people I don't think are honestly worth a ton of my time. I think I'm more focused on engaging, say, a runner who who has a basic understanding of climate change and science and respects that, but maybe isn't voting, or maybe is too shy to speak up that like, hey, air quality really matters to me, or hey, like someone who cares about climate policy, I want to see in office, and empowering those people to feel like they can be advocates, because there's so many people in that middle group on this spectrum of, like hardcore activist and then climate denier. It's like the breadth of the people that I feel like can and will change the world are in the middle, and they know all of the science. They're just not doing anything about it, or not being vocal, not voting, not putting their money where their mouth is, not buying consciously. So it's like, these people are crazy. Like, I'm sorry, they just are. Like, so if more people can just like, be vocal, I think that's where I'm keen on. No one's ever come to one of my events that's been like, screw you, like you're crazy. So that's nice. I think I feel fortunate. Like, I honestly haven't had that many like trolls, for better or worse, because that could prove that I am in a pretty like thick echo chamber.
I think I've got a couple of questions out of that actually. So if someone did come up to you after you delivered a speech, say about air pollution and reducing our reliance on the fossil fuel industry, and imagine if someone came up to you in the crowd, or you were walking out and everyone was cheering, and someone like came up and threw a paint of oil on you and said, climate change isn't real. Like, would Claire just jump them and start laying into them with some fists? Or would Claire be the one to say, no, I understand, I have compassion for you? What's Claire going to do in that situation?
I mean, I would obviously like to think the latter. Definitely.
But is there a chance that it may go the other way?
Like, it depended. If someone was attacking me, like I would use self-defense. But if it was like a PR ploy, I would try and be strategic about how to dilute the attempt at making like good PR for a climate denier. And like crazy people are I mean, it's fair. I think I would have to be doing like really well for that to happen. I feel like I would really have to be making a lot of people activists, so maybe that's like a goal in a way. I'm not unaware of how small my niche is in the trail and ultra world. Like, this is a very niche community we're talking about. So yeah. The funny thing is too, the oil and gas industries don't really have grassroots movements like the environmental or climate justice movements do. Like, that person who throws oil on someone, I mean, they're probably paid by, and like, I'm just thinking like, how would that ever happen? It's like probably a paid like protester to go do that by some oil and gas like PR firm. Have you heard of that happening?
No, I just kind of thought how like I always thought of it just as the fur industry, the fur industry, and people used to walk up and throw paint on people with fur jackets. And I thought,
oh, totally. Yeah.
Like, I'm trying to string them together, and I'm thinking, is it going to, I mean, I think it would be an amazing outcome as well. Imagine if someone came up to you and threw oil on you, and there was like, no, you're like having too much good impact in the world, and you're converting too many people away from using oil and fossil fuels. That'd be brilliant, right?
Yeah.
I could almost see it as like, going down that way of just like, everyone is getting so on board that these companies, like you say, are freaking out, and they need to get some PR in another direction or something. But yeah, I'm on board with you as well. I hope that doesn't happen, but I just thought it'd be interesting
Yeah, fossil fuel, from my understanding, companies' PR is like way more strategic in a really frightening way. Like, I don't know if you've heard the podcast Drilled. I highly recommend listening to this series. It's pretty short, and it just documents the multi-million dollar PR strategies that happened from the 70s, 80s, 90s to make Americans feel like their oil consumption made them like allies of the fossil fuel industry, and it basically painted the fossil fuel industry in a much better light than what they are. It denied climate change, even though everyone knew it was happening internally. But people like fossil fuel companies would have like a special advertisement in like the New York Times right next to an actual op-ed in the New York Times, and it would look like an op-ed written by a constituent, when really it was just like a very sneaky ad. And they did things like this and huge scales, broad strokes, to culturally make Americans and other people around the world think like, okay, this is good. Like this, there is no problem with climate change. Me putting gas in my car makes me an ally of the fossil fuel industry. I don't have a right to speak up against it, even if I care about polar bears and pandas. And, and yeah, it was brilliant.
I believe you may have shared one of those, maybe on just an Instagram story. And I did, it really triggered me. I went and listened to one and I just thought, just like, holy crap, it's just like you say, it's in a scary way how they market. It's marketing, like how
yeah,
they
exactly. Yeah.
They like tell a story that hits people on an emotional level, a level of their existence, because every day they're using these things that these companies are making, and it's just like, yeah, it's whoever they've got working in that sector of their business, is obviously getting paid very well, because that's how it works in that industry, and so it's probably a very, very clever in their job and the way about marketing a business like that. Like it's.
Mm-hmm.
It's no better way to describe it than scary. That's for sure.
Totally.
From afar, I knew you as an incredibly talented athlete. You ran for the North Face, and then it seemed like you joined forces. I'm not sure exactly how it went, but you started to work with Patagonia, and I felt like you really, your voice got amplified in regards to what you're obviously really passionate about. But when did your passion and understanding and desire to learn more about the environmental aspect of this planet, like when did that all start to happen for you, and how did that come about?
Well, I will say I've been an environmentalist my whole life. Mainly due to my upbringing. My parents really have a respect for the natural world. And it's not to say we were like taking these big, crazy trips, but like I grew up with a really big backyard garden that, like all of our food in the summer was from our garden. This is in suburban Denver, with chickens and goats. And I was constantly reading about just the natural world. And then like in high school, I was president of the recycling club, and I had a bracelet that said like, stop global warming. And I didn't even know what global warming was. But I really respected my teachers, who were clearly, like now in hindsight, like really radical and awesome environmentalists. And in college, I went to school in New Jersey at Princeton. I studied the impacts of climate change on coral reefs. So that was pretty like legitimate, like seeing the impacts of climate change made me really mobilized. And I worked with a group on my college campus to divest our endowment, which is like $26 billion, off fossil fuels, which has yet to happen. Like no big Ivy League in the US has divested from fossil fuels, but that was almost 10 years ago when I was on that campaign. Now I'm still working on it as an alum. And then I thought I wanted to go to med school and help people, which was sort of like a weird blip in my 20s. And ultimately that failed because I can't pass organic chemistry. And and then I became a professional runner, and it was just like, it honestly has always been very natural to being an environmentalist. But when Trump was elected, it was like, oh shit, I have the privilege to be a pro runner, and I'm witnessing all of these like public lands protections being ripped out of the US, from Bears Ears to places in Colorado to northern Alaska. And so I was like, I need to talk about this. Like, this is my job. Like, running on public lands is my job. Like, how can any runner ignore that? There's like these crazy assaults happening all over the world. So, and Patagonia is like, my philosophy fits right in with theirs. So I feel very grateful that, I've been able to work within a company that like amplifies my voice and opinions. Like I would say in some ways Patagonia is like, I mean, they're just so smart and radical, almost more so than me, just because it's so big, right? I'm just like this one individual in a tiny world called trail running. Patagonia is $1 billion company, and they still are run by the Chenard family, and they, aren't publicly traded. And so they can do things like say, we're in business to save our home planet.
Yeah, it's a pretty incredible mission statement. And, obviously their previous mission statement was working for them, but yet they still then went and kind of even made it more radical by changing it up and just making it very concise. And this is what we're here to do. Like, and there's no ifs or buts about it.
Totally. Yeah. And it's funny because I know you started this conversation asking about Outdoor Retailer, which is like ISPO in Europe, an outdoor trade show. And like the consumerism of the outdoor industry is mind-boggling. And I think that's something Patagonia is really trying to acknowledge, with worn wear and fixing things. And like, if you're going to have a shirt, like it better be so well made that you like can use it for years on end. And because otherwise our industry is so contradictory. Like go outside and play and have all this like fancy petroleum based gear. And I'm like totally on a soapbox right now. So, like I'm a part of that industry 100%. But I feel like there are subtle ways or bold ways to go against consumerism culture and to be more conscious consumer. Like if you can afford to go backpacking, like you should be offsetting your trips. You should be buying products from companies that care about the environment and care about the public lands they're telling you to go play on.
Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, you can 100% do it boldly. It's got, doing it subtly is, there's no need anymore. Yeah. You can get on your own soapbox and scream it out. Like, absolutely. And I 100% encourage that. Like it's like we were saying before, it's all those small things that will add up to cause big change. And it's like so many other things in history, right? It has to come from few, and it will just it's the snowball effect. So like, eventually, because I deep down do believe that a lot of people in their own minds and when they're by themselves in their bedroom or in their kitchen are going, holy fuck, like what is going on here? We really need to do something. Yet don't have the confidence or don't feel like they have the ability to do much about it. But it's when everyone starts to get like belief that they can, and knowledge that they can, and confidence that they can, that we'll get this snowball effect, and it's just going to be, it's going to move things. It's going to move mountains, all those small steps.
100%. And for someone like, sitting in their kitchen, feeling alone and like experiencing climate anxiety, like to that person, I'd say, go find, like use the internet to find a local group that is working on solutions in your area. Because, and like, I still get nervous showing up to meetings that I don't know anyone at, and I don't know what they're going to be like. I don't know if they're like crazy, like people ready to, storm the Capitol or something. Or if it's a group, like you have to show up to know, and showing up to a group like a Protect Our Winners meeting, or a local environmental group, a Sunrise Movement in the Colorado, or canvassing for a political campaign, meeting those people will make you feel like, okay, there is hope. And I'm hopeful that more running groups are evolving into this type of a group where runners can feel safe and supported and like super inspired to like make the world a better place. I feel like you have that vibe about your communities you're in, which is really awesome. So it's like, just show up, go someplace, get nervous, meet weird people that are really smart and great.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely, totally weird. Meet weird people. I think everyone needs to embrace their inner weirdness a little bit more. This quote stuck in my head the other day about don't become perfect because you won't be able to relate to anyone. And it's just like, yeah, things can seem way too clean and perfect sometimes, but it's not that case. Like, go get some dirt under your fingernails and go meet someone that is a little bit quirky, but doing something from the goodness of their heart, like literally trying to make a movement in their hometown that's gonna go a long way to helping save humans as well. I think that's one thing. I did say that to a friend the other day. I'm like, speaking about like saving planet Earth, and he kind of pulled me up and was like, I think the planet Earth knows exactly what it needs to do to survive. I think it's humans that are that should understand that all they're going to do is kill themselves. And planet Earth is going to remain here for longer than we are, and it's going to go through a cycle of regeneration, and it's going to be able to become more better and beautiful than it ever was as soon as humans kill themselves off the planet. So it's like, yeah, I don't know what your thoughts on that are, because that was, to me, that was like, oh yeah, I mean, that's saying something.
So someone said that to you. Yeah, it's totally, I think, the reality, and that almost makes us like speciesist in a sense, like anthropocentric, but there's going to be hundreds of years of like immense suffering, I think, before humanity dies off if we don't do anything about the climate crisis. So if you take like a utilitarian standpoint, yeah, how do we reduce like the amount of human suffering and all suffering? Like, that would be to act on climate change immediately, as aggressively as possible, because hundreds of thousands of people, millions of people are going to suffer and already have been. And species, like, especially in Australia, like how many species did you guys lose in the bushfires?
It's incomprehensible, to be honest. Yeah. It's insane. Yeah. And I mean, in saying that, I think to add to what you just said, it's also understanding that we're not separate from nature. Like, we are one and the same thing. And I believe once more people start to not just understand that on a logical level, like, or a thinking level. But once people start to get outside and to feel that again, and to really feel the elements and feel and understand that we are nature as well, and I think that's going to be a pretty powerful thing.
Yeah, all the more reason to also like keep going on your runs.
Yeah.
Outside, like, you know, make time for some epics and yeah, 100%.
Have you got any epics coming up this year? What's on the calendar?
Well, my race schedule is pretty sparse. I'm going to be racing like Sonoma 50 in Northern California in April, and then Western States 100 in June. And that's it so far. I'm doing a handful of air pollution events called Running Up for Air, one in Colorado in March. And I'll like crew this 24-hour race of it, where people basically just do laps on a loop to raise awareness for air pollution, to raise money. And I'll do that again in Chamonix, France, this spring. Chamonix has pretty bad air pollution. But that hopefully will be the only time I'm in Europe. I've said no to all international races so that I can focus on 2020 elections in the US and try and spend my time like in a really meaningful way this year. Because I think it like these presidential elections and Senate elections and, you know, lower level are so pivotal to Earth's reckoning. So I'm trying to put my money where my mouth is and keep it local.
Rad. Thanks, dude. But I mean, you guys are a powerhouse. America is such a powerhouse. And when your president gets called the most powerful person in the world, it's like, that says something. So if you can, if you can work on it from that level, I mean, that's, if you want to have impact, that's a pretty good way to go about it.
Yeah.
Can you, Running Up for Air, like where can people go to find out how to get involved in that and join along? Yeah,
it's upforairseries.org. And if you live in Utah, there are 3 options of races. There's also one in Missoula, Montana this year. I would not be surprised. I mean, it hasn't been like even thought about yet, but like, I don't know why we wouldn't have one in Australia. Patagonia Europe puts on the one in Chamonix, France. Australia seems like a prime place to have one as well. Like Southern California, like I said, air pollution's everywhere. So the idea was started by this amazing human, Jared Campbell, who's won Barclays a few times, and he lives in Salt Lake City, or did. And that has the worst winter air pollution inversions. And so he would run up a peak and literally run through this inversion, this cloud of smog, and he would see above it. And he's like, oh, I'm breathing clean air. And all these like millions of people in the city are breathing, crappy, death air. And so he was like, I got to do something about it. And at first it was just like him and 10 crazy people running laps for 24 hours. And then he started raising money. And now it's become this international series. And last year, just in Salt Lake City alone, they raised $45,000 for a group called Breathe Utah, which lobbies for air policy in the state of Utah, which is a very conservative state. And, air is bipartisan. Like, I don't care which political party you care about, but you probably want to breathe clean air. So it's a really brilliant method. I encourage everyone to look it up, regardless of where you live, because hopefully maybe it could inspire you to start your own.
Damn, Claire, I think you may have laid down a challenge. I might have to get one going. I might have to pull up my socks and get one going in Australia. That would be rad.
So are you living in New Zealand? What's the deal?
No, I'm here right now. Right now at the moment. But
gotcha.
Yeah, damn. I mean, it goes on what we were saying before. I'm like a bit of a global citizen at the moment, which is...
Totally. Yeah. Where in New Zealand are you?
I'm in the town called Rotorua. It's
Oh, sweet. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, because Tarawera is this weekend.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Are you running?
No, I'll be working.
Okay.
And doing my part for the community out abroad to try and show them some of what's happening over here. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Oh, I actually was gonna go this year, and then I sort of pulled the plug on a New Zealand trip.
Damn.
Yeah, but you'll see a bunch of Americans.
Yeah.
Cats out there.
So, but Chamonix, up for air in Chamonix, that sounds good. I'll see you there. That's what date are you going to be putting that one on? Because I'm no doubt a lot of people will be keen to get involved in that one.
Yeah, it's May 16th.
Okay, radical.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Nice work. So Claire, I know you said that in 2 minutes' time you need to jump off this phone call. I want to say thanks a lot for just everything you do in terms of just being a voice and setting an example. I think I'm sure a lot of people do tell you that it does go a long way, and it is inspiring, and it does create a definite kind of emotion to cause change. So I think if you're doing that on a human level, then the world is going to be a better place as a result. So thanks for all your efforts, mate.
Thank you. I really appreciate what you're doing with Take 3 for the trail.
Just doing something small, mate. I think
it's so good. The humor element, I think, is really needed when we're talking about environmental woes.
Yeah. Well, have a great time this year with your events and your epics that you've got coming up. I know we just spoke about races, but I'm sure there's also some epic missions that you'll be getting involved in.
Yeah, definitely.
And damn, I mean, maybe we could put it out there and say we need to get a global up for air, we need to get one on every continent and get people doing something for it, because that'd be a pretty cool thing to see around the world.
It'd be incredible.
Yeah.
100%.
Almost like a Wings for Life world run, up for air.
Yeah, definitely. Also, I mean, the relief run, like, look at how well that went, right?
Yeah, that was incredible, hey?
Yeah. And all of like the trail raffle you did.
Yeah, it's been amazing, like how people have really come to play it. And another friend of mine's also doing a campaign this April called Run for Wild Places, which is something really interesting, supporting three kind of local environmental causes. And it's just this big campaign that is essentially trying to get people out into wild places, because like you were saying before, it's just like so pivotal to our health and our being on this planet and enjoying it more. And so just trying to create some more movement towards protecting them and saving them. And if we can run, walk, bike, just be out in these wild places, it's gonna allow us to connect more back to where we came from. And it can only be a good thing.
That's awesome. Who is it? Where is this taking place?
So, well, it's something that it's an online thing. You can sign up to it online. So it's runforwildplaces.com.au. A friend, Simon Harris, put it together. I'll definitely share some info with you on it. And it'd be cool to get you involved. It's just one of those things that's coming from a place of like someone's heart is breaking because he's seeing all these wild places get tortured, and it's just like, how the hell can we fucking do something to stop this happening? And
totally.
It's as simple as that, that's where it comes from, and that's the message it needs to take through. So yeah.
Awesome.
So there we have it, a pretty full-on conversation about a very, very important topic. Well, many topics, and also a little bit of running. Anyway, I hope that helps you have a conversation and helps us as a species help maintain the art of conversation. So thanks a lot. Remember, look up the Up for Air series and Run for Wild Places. Take it easy. Thanks a lot. #run responsibly. My name's Mael Backhausen, and this is Stokely, a creative endeavour to ensure we continue to connect, listen, learn, and evolve through the art of conversation.